my whole life I'd planned on joining the American military. I wanted to be like G.I. Jake. I had been accepted into West Point Military Academy and the U.S. Air Force Academy as well, and that was kind of the goal of my whole life. And things looked like they were going well. I had the grades to go with it. I'd met with like the congressional committees. They have to interview you to see whether or not you'd be able to make it in the Army, I guess, and as an officer at the academies. And so all of that I had done. And so life was looking great, and I was ready to serve in the Army. When I was 16 years old, I ended up getting shot in the eye by a paintball gun. And so at that point, the things with the military are looking pretty fuzzy. The Air Force is kind of backing out because what good are you if you're only got one eye and whatnot. But I had a couple reconstructive surgeries, and my eye looked like it would be for the most part fine, and the Army was still saying they would take me. And so that was in my junior year when I was shot, and now I'm in my senior year around March, and everything is looking great to still go into the Army when the Department of Defense sends me a letter saying, sorry, you've been disqualified from any form of service. At that point in time, basically my plan A, plan B, and plan C are all out the window because the Army was giving me a scholarship to any university I wanted to go to, and West Point as well as a full ride. So my plans for the future basically crumbled 3 months before graduation, and I hadn't really made backup plans because my backup plans still involved the military. And at that point I was just kind of looking for a direction to go. And my whole life I'd grown up Christian, predominantly Methodist, but church hopped quite a lot, looking for the one where my family felt that we fit in. And so we've been to non-denominational churches, Lutheran church, many different buildings and congregations, trying to find one where we fit. And we get to the point now where we're sitting around the table. It's just my mother, father, and I, and we're talking about where am I going to go to school? What am I going to do? I'm not the typical high schooler, you could say, in the fact that I was living Latter-day Saint standards my whole life. I'd never drank, I've never smoked, I was waiting till I was married, things like that. And normal universities didn't really appeal to me because they were all party schools. I was looking at the University of Colorado, and about the week before all of this, they had like a giant marijuana sit-in where everybody took weed to the library and decided to try and protest to get it legal. And so I was kind of put off by that. And as we're sitting around this table, my dad says, why don't you check out Brigham Young University? Now, I'd never even heard of BYU. I'm from Northwest Ohio, and where I'm from, I graduated with 89 people. Not one of them was Mormon. My branch is about 20 minutes from where I live, and the average age is quite a bit higher. There was one other priest in the branch when I first started going. And so I'd never really heard of Mormons. But there's a couple backstories to my conversion story as well. So my father, he was a Mormon. He's the only member of his family. The rest of his family, they weren't against it, but they weren't necessarily supportive either. And he was baptized when he was 15. He went out drinking with some of his friends, and his girlfriend happened to be a Latter-day Saint. And he went out drinking and skipped her ballet recital, so she just brought down the hammer and told him, straighten up, Danny Kissel, or I'm going to break up with you. So he straightened up, and he was baptized, and he stayed active for about 4 years until some issues came up and things got hard in the branch, and he met my mom. And my mom, for personal reasons, was quite against the Latter-day Saint Church. There's a really long story to that, and I'll keep that long story short. She'd had some bad experiences with members of the church, and so she was quite against Mormonisms. And as her and my dad started courting, my dad slowly began to drift away from the church, and still was a Christian and still had a testimony, but he never really talked about it in the home because mom was kind of no-go. So we're sitting around this table, my dad says, check out Brigham Young University. My mom kind of shoots him a look, and I'm kind of like intrigued instantly. So I Google BYU, and on the front page of BYU's website was a pole vaulter. And it was mid-pole vault season, March, for myself, and I'm like, God's trying to give me a sign. I'm going to check out this BYU. And the more I started looking into it, the more I just loved it. I was an Eagle Scout already, didn't know Mormons and scouting was even a thing, and so as I was looking into that, I was like, wow, I'll fit in there. The honor code and the standards of the church were something I felt totally in line with, and I decided if I go to this Mormon school, instead of being an oddball out and being a loner at university, I'll have friends, people like me. And that kind of was what made me decide, all right, I'm going to church this Sunday. We're going to go to the Mormon church. I didn't know where it was or anything like that, but my dad volunteered. He said, I'll go with you. And that Sunday we decided to go. And so we hop in the car on Sunday morning, 9 o'clock, 9:30, whatever, and we're driving on our way there. And on the way to church, just thinking nothing of it. We get there and we realize there's nobody at the church. 10 o'clock Sunday morning, and it's April 6th. It's General Conference. And so no one was at the branch. I don't know what's going on. I asked my dad, did they shut down the Mormon church? And he says, no, they haven't shut down the Mormon church. And he Googles it, and we get back, and he puts on conference on the TV, and I watched for about 5 minutes of like, oh, they're boring old men, and just got up and went and did my own thing. But I was still determined the next week I would go to church and I would discover what this whole Mormon thing is about. And fast forward next week, Sunday, I hadn't really thought much about it during the week. My dad had given me the Book of Mormon I didn't even know we owned, and was like, you should start reading this, and I just kind of ignored it. But the next week we go to church, and the missionaries, as soon as they found out I wasn't a member, they were just on top of it. Instantly became my best friends, and they were huge in my conversion process. And after Sunday school that week, they gave me my own copy of the Gospel Principles Manual, and said, take this home, read next week's chapter. It's about Heavenly Father, or whatever. And I took it home, and as I started reading it, I decided I read the whole thing in one night. I fell asleep around 3 a.m. in exaltation, and woke up the next morning and finished it off, and was just blown away. I was like, I think I'm going to become a Mormon. My mom's like, slow down, and my dad's like, yeah, take it a bit slower. And after that, I started going to church every week, and after about 3 months, I was baptized on June 16th, 2012, and went to BYU. I managed to get in for that fall, so I went to BYU for a year, and then left on my mission August 22nd, 2013. So